In the village of Ikuku, deep in the heart of the land, there lived a hairdresser named Zita. She wasn't just any hairdresser. Zita was the hairdresser. Her small salon, painted a soft yellow, sat at the edge of the busy market square. From sunrise to sunset, women of all ages came to her, waiting in line for hours just to have her hands work magic on their hair. Zita was fast, faster than anyone had ever seen. Her fingers seemed to dance as they braided, twisting and turning hair in ways that seemed impossible. No one could figure out how she did it. Her styles were intricate, very unique, almost like pieces of art. They could last for weeks without loosening, even in the burning heat of Ikuku. And what's more, women who had their hair braided by Zita seemed to carry an air of confidence, as if her hands had woven success into their lives. But there was one strange thing about Zita's salon: her rule about not having combs to her salon. Zita had a very strict rule against bringing combs to her salon. She used her own combs and insisted that she preferred her own combs. And in order to be sure people did not flaunt her rule, every client was seriously searched before they came into Zita's salon. She was that strict. This was a salon, so people found it strange that combs were not allowed. But Zita was the best hairdresser, so the women of Ikuku obeyed Zita's rule because they wanted her to work her magic into their hair. They felt that not bringing their own combs was a small price to pay. It wasn't a big deal, they reasoned. The women of Ikuku loved to gossip, and whenever someone new came to the village, they were always quick to share the latest stories. So when Amara, a young bride who had just moved from the city after marrying Emeka, came to the village, she was told about Zita and the magic she could work on her hair. "You have to go to her," said the farmer, Amara's neighbor, as they sat under the mango tree. "She's amazing. After she braided my hair, my husband got a promotion at work. I swear, it was like she braided good luck right into my scalp." Amara laughed. "Is that so?" "Oh yes," Ifeoma nodded earnestly. "But there's one thing. She's very strict about not letting anyone bring their own comb." Amara frowned. "What do you mean?" "She insists that she uses her own comb. Her assistant, Kosi, checks your bag when you come in to make sure you don't have one. It's strange, but I guess it's part of her magic." A few days later, Amara found herself sitting in Zita's salon. She had to admit, she was curious. When she arrived, the place was already packed with women. They sat on wooden stools, their heads wrapped with scarves, chatting away. Zita moved from one client to another, her fingers flying through the air, braiding and twisting at a speed that left Amara speechless. When it was finally her turn, Amara stood up and walked towards Zita's chair. Before she could sit down, Kosi stepped forward. She was a tall, thin woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Let me see your bag," Kosi said, holding out her hand. Amara was taken aback. "Why do you need to check my bag?" "It's the rule," Kosi replied, her tone firm but not unkind. "No one brings their own comb here." Amara hesitated, her hand gripping her bag tightly. Something about it didn't sit right with her. "What's so special about your comb?" she asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. Zita, who had been watching the exchange, smiled softly. "It's just a tradition. Trust me, my combs are the best. You'll see." Amara reluctantly handed over her bag. Kosi rummaged through it, nodded and stepped aside. As Amara sat down, Zita began to work. The feel of Zita's fingers on her scalp was strange. There was a prickling sensation, almost like tiny electric shocks running through her skin. But it wasn't painful, just odd. Over the next few weeks, Amara's hair remained perfect, the braids neat and flawless. But something else began to happen a few weeks after she had her hair braided. Her life, which had once been filled with joy and laughter, started to fall apart. Emeka, her husband, who had once been so loving, grew distant. They began to argue over the smallest things. Amara's dreams, once full of hope, were now filled with shadows and uncertainty. At first, she thought it was just bad luck. But then, she started hearing stories from other women in the village. Women like Chika, who used to run a successful fruit stall in the market, but now struggled to make even a small profit. Or Adaeze, who had been happily married for years, but now couldn't go a day without fighting with her husband. They had all been to Zita's salon a few weeks ago to braid their hair, and these were Zita's regular customers. Amara brushed it off her mind. I am sure it is just a coincidence, she thought. One afternoon, Amara visited Chika at her home, a small hut at the edge of the village. Chika sat on her porch, peeling cassava, her eyes dull with exhaustion. You've been to Zita's salon, haven't you? Amara asked, sitting beside her. Chika nodded. Of course, who hasn't? She's the best. But have you noticed strange things happening since you went there? Chika looked at her, confused. What do you mean? Amara hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I have been hearing things. Women will go to her. Their lives start to fall apart. Chika's eyes widened. That's nonsense. Zita doesn't do anything but hair. How could she be the cause? I don't know, Amara said slowly, but I think it has something to do with that comb. Amara couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She began to watch Zita more closely. Every time she passed the salon, she would peek through the window, watching as Zita's hands moved with inhuman speed. And every time she saw that comb, smooth, black, and gleaming in the sunlight. One day, as she passed by, she overheard a conversation. An older woman, her hair freshly braided, was thanking Zita. You always know how to make me feel younger, she laughed. Zita smiled, but there was something in her eyes. A flicker of what? Guilt? Fear? Amara knew she had to dig deeper. She sought out Mama Ngozi, one of the oldest women in the village. Mama Ngozi knew everything about everyone. If there was a secret to be uncovered, she would be the one to help. Sitting in Mama Ngozi's small hut, with the smell of herbs and burning wood filling the air, Amara explained everything she had seen and heard. Mama Ngozi listened carefully, nodding as she stirred a pot of soup over the fire. The comb, she finally said, her voice low, is cursed. Amara's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? That comb was given to Zita by an old woman long ago. The woman was a stranger. No one knew where she came from. She offered the comb to Zita, saying it would bring her great success. But the success came at a price. What kind of price? Amara asked. Mama Ngozi's eyes darkened. With every braid, the comb takes something from the one being braided. Their luck, their fortune, their happiness. It drains them and gives it to Zita. That's why her business is so successful. Why her hands move so fast. She has been feeding off the lives of her clients. Ha! Chineke! Amara shouted. She left Mama Ngozi's house with her heart racing. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. A cursed comb? It sounded impossible, but the more she thought about it, the more it made sense. She knew she had to stop Zita, but how? The next day, Amara gathered a few of the women who had been affected. They met in secret at Chika's house, their voices hushed as they listened intently to Amara's revelation about Zita's comb. They were all shocked and began to put two and two together to see the trend. Tufiakwa, we have to stop her, they said, as they discussed what they were going to do. We can't just confront her, Ifeoma said. She will deny everything. She might be dangerous, Chika added, her face pale. But we can't let her keep doing this, Amara insisted. She's stealing from us, our lives, our happiness. It's all because of that comb. The women came up with a plan. They would catch Zita in the act. Amara volunteered to go back to the salon, pretending to need another braid. But this time, she would bring a hidden comb of her own. When Amara returned to the salon, Zita greeted her with a wide smile. "Back again, I see. You loved your braids, didn't you?" Amara smiled tightly. "Yes, they were perfect, but I thought maybe we could try something new today." As Zita reached for her comb, Amara discreetly pulled her own comb from her bag, where she had hidden it in a corner of the bag, slipping it into her lap. She waited, heart pounding, as Zita began to work. Suddenly, Zita's hands froze. She looked down, her eyes narrowing. "What is this?" she hissed, snatching the comb from Amara's hands. Amara stood up, her voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. "It is over, Zita. We know about the comb. We know about the curse." "What curse? What are you talking about?" Zita shouted at Amara. It was very visible that Zita was uncomfortable. Her hands that were holding Amara's comb was shaking vigorously. She was shaking all over just because that comb was in her salon. She wanted to throw it away, but Amara refused. "We know about the curse. The curse. The old woman that gave you that comb. You have been stealing people's luck," Amara shouted. The salon fell silent. Zita's face twisted with anger and fear. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Without the comb, I'm nothing. I will lose everything." "You have been stealing from us," Amara shouted. "Our happiness, our lives, you've taken it all." Zita backed away, her eyes wild. "I had no choice. The comb, it demands to be fed." The women outside began to gather, their faces filled with shock and betrayal. One by one, they stepped forward, confronting Zita, demanding answers. Realizing she was cornered, Zita tried to run, but there was nowhere to run. The women had blocked all the doors. That night, the villagers gathered by the forest. They dragged Zita to the forest and insisted she bring the comb with her. They dug a hole, a deep hole, and forced Zita to bury the cursed comb deep in the earth where it could no longer harm anyone. As they covered the hole with soil, there was a strange stillness in the air, as if the village itself sighed in relief. They refused to allow Zita back into the village. She was now a taboo, and she was banished from the village. They did not want the curse hanging around their village anymore. Finally, the village of Ikuku was free from her influence. In the days that followed, strange things started to happen. The women who had once lost everything, Chika, Ifoma, Amara, and many others, started to notice changes. Chika's fruit stall in the market suddenly thrived again. Ifoma's husband received another promotion at work. Amara's relationship with Emeka began to heal. Their love rekindled as if a dark cloud had been lifted from their home. It was as if all that had been stolen from them was being returned. One by one, the women of Ikuku found themselves regaining their luck, their fortune, and their happiness. They shared knowing glances, whispering to each other about how the curse had been broken. One afternoon, Amara visited Mama Ngozi to thank her. She found the old woman sitting outside her hut, chewing on kola nuts. "You did very well, my child," Mama Ngozi said without looking up, as if she had already known Amara was coming. "I couldn't have done it without you," Amara replied, sitting beside her. "But there's something I still don't understand. Why did Zita keep using the comb? Why not stop when she realized it was cursed and what it was doing to people?" Mama Ngozi chuckled softly, a low, almost haunting sound. "The law of power, my dear. It's like a hunger that never ends. Once you taste it, you're never satisfied. Zita may have started with good intentions, but over time, the comb owned her, not the other way around." Amara nodded, deep in thought. "I feel sorry for her, in a way. She must have been so afraid of losing everything." Perhaps, Mama Ngozi said, her voice heavy with wisdom. But we must always be careful of what we desire. Not all success is worth the price. Life in Ikuku returned to normal, but the story of Zita and the cursed comb became a warning passed down from generation to generation. Mothers told their daughters to be cautious of gifts that seem too good to be true. Fathers warned their sons not to envy the success of others without knowing the cost. As for Amara, she found a new sense of peace, knowing that she and the other women of Ikuku had taken back what was rightfully theirs. There are some very important lessons you can gain from this story. 1. Be careful what you wish for. Not all success comes without a price, and the easy road may lead to destruction. 2. Greed can consume you. Zita's desire for more led her down a dark path, and in the end, she lost everything. 3. There's always a cost to shortcuts. Whether it's in business, relationships, or personal achievements, taking unethical shortcuts often leads to ruin. And 4. Trust your instincts. Amara knew something was wrong from the start, and her courage to question it saved her and the village. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more African folktales filled with suspense, mystery, and valuable lessons. What do you think about Zita's story? Would you have done anything differently? Let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and remember, not every gift is a blessing in disguise. Stay cautious and stay wise. Subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories from the heart of Africa. See you in the next video.